Welcome, traveler. Today we are delving into the part 3 of the Commander Banlist. If you haven't watched the first 2 episodes, they are linked in the description. Otherwise, sit back and relax. This is Eve. If you're interested, come take a peek into the cauldron. So let's go over the last category and probably the most controversial, which is the broken category. But let's start with a card that's not gonna be controversial. And that card is gonna be Fastbond. I mean, no one will ever argue that Fastbond isn't a broken card, especially if your starting life total is 40. So for 1 mana, it's an enchantment. It says, you may play any number of lands on each of your turns, and whenever you play a land, if it wasn't the first land you played this turn, Fastbond deals 1 damage to you. Oh no, one whole damage? Dang, that's so bad. How can I pay this? 1 damage? I'm impossible. Why would I pay 1 life for this? For just an extra land drop? And I mean, you cannot punish the regular land drop. That would be insane. So the regular land drop, you don't even take damage. This card is extremely broken, doesn't have any reason to exist, the land you play is even untapped. It's one of the most broken cards in the game, no question asked. Even in 20 life formats, this card's an all-star, and yeah, it should stay banned because it's busted. The only reason why I could see this card being printed in the first place is because in the very first expansions there were no restricted cards. So you could run as many cards of any one name as you wanted. So if you were playing something like 10 Moxes for 0, then Fastbond wouldn't look that ludicrous. But we don't live in that times anymore, and Fastbond is one of the most broken cards in the game, so let's go over it. Next up, Timevault. It's a very funny little artifact for 2 mana, and it says that it enters the battlefield tapped. It doesn't untap during your untap step, but if you would begin your turn while Timevault is tapped, you may skip that turn instead. If you do, untap Timevault, and then you can tap the Timevault to take an extra turn after this one. So, Timevault is a very interesting and fun design. When this card was made, there weren't fancy way to untap it. So when they designed it, they said, okay, you have this artifact, it looks so cool. By the way, the art in this is I just love it. I don't. What is going on with that lady clothing? What the hell does she have on her head? It's insanely cool. Mark Tedin. I love it. It's so beautiful. But let's get over this crazy art. Even though I could talk about it forever, it's so insanely detailed. The color scheme, but whatever. So, Timevault, the idea was you decided to skip a turn to get 2 turns one after the other. So the idea would be very cool. You decide to get a super explosive sequence with a very cheap double turn, but you would give up a turn. That would be very fun, very fair. I could even see uses for it, for a quote-unquote fair Timevault play. The problem is no one has ever played a fair Timevault in their life. There are way too many ways to untap this, even multiple times. Like, imagine having a winding clock and a Timevault, so we would be able to take an extra turn after each player's turn. And not regarding Timevault, but regarding extra turns in general, I think when you play in Commander, turns take already very long, because in 4-player game it takes a while for you to get another turn, especially later in the game, or if you have many things going on. Extra turn effects are very mean and very busted. I don't think any turn cards should be played in multiplayer, but let's not go over that. That's for another video. So, back to Time Vault. Of course, you can combo this card extremely easy. It's extremely busted. It's basically a repeatable time walk. It's banned. It can never ever come off the ban list. But if you walk up to me and said, "Hey, I'm playing Time Vault in my deck and have no way to untap it. Is it fine?" I would say yes. I would be very thrilled to see you skip a turn to get double turn. You could do something cool with it, even if played fairly. Unfortunately, you can. I wish they would print a time vault that was fair. There isn't one. I don't know how you would be able to. How do you word a fair time vault? So it would be like 2 mana, tap, exile it, and skip your next turn at the beginning of the next. I don't know. I have no idea what a fair time vault will be worded, but I wish there was a way and that we had one. I think it would be very fun to use. Now, let's go over Flash. Flash is a very innocent looking card. For 1 and a blue, it's an instant. It's a fairly recent ban, and it says you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, and if you do, you sacrifice it unless you pay its mana cost reduced by up to 2. So, why is Flash banned? It doesn't read scary, and no tactic transforms a battle like a well-timed carnivore. So, why is it banned? Very simple. Protean Hawk. For those who don't know, Protean Hawk is another very funny creature that for 7 mana is a 6/6 creature beast, and when it dies you search your library for any number of creature cards with total converted mana cost 6 or less, and you put them directly into play. So you cast Flash, you put Protean Hawk into play. You very unfortunately don't play the 5 mana that it would cost to keep the Protean Hawk into play. The Protean Hawk would die and you fetch your combo and win. So it was the most powerful deck you could play in the format. And it was, if I'm not mistaken, is the single ban that was ever made for competitive EDH. Literally the first one ever. They threw them a bone. The community was really lamenting this combination when they unbanned Protean Hawk. I don't think Protean Hawk is a very problematic card without Slash. It's still very strong. I believe there are competitive decks that still use it. But with Flash it was just 2 mana, instant speed, I win the game. The now best combination is 3 mana with the Tassa's Oracle and its sorcery speed. It's not even remotely as strong. Not so strong that it needs a ban. At least I guess. I don't play CDH by any stretch of the imagination, so maybe it should be banned. I don't know. But one thing is sure, it's not as good as Flash Hawk. And that's why Flash is banned. Should it come back? No, because unlike Protean Hawk, which is a pretty fun card, I play Protean Hawk without it being busted. And I usually go like Protean Hawk, sack Protean Hawk, fetch like, I don't know, Karmic Guide and One Elf, and get back Protean Hawk, sack Protean Hawk again, get another couple of creatures, get a lot of value off of it, but I don't fetch combos, so it's fine. And here's the fun part of the combo. So if a part needs to go, well, definitely Flash. So it's okay to leave it banned. No one's gonna miss it. Next up, Library of Alexandria. This is a land, very old land, and it says tap for a colorless, or you can tap to draw a card. You can use the card draw ability only if you have exactly 7 cards in your hand. Now, this card is limited in Vintage and banned in Legacy. It's not legendary, even though it's a Library of Alexandria, only because there aren't legendary cards at the time. So, the artwork is very simple, but I love it. It may be very controversial, but I don't think this card will be broken in Commander. Now, hear me out. It may be insane. Probably no one has ever said that before, but I think you would be fine to unban Library of Alexandria in 2022. Why? First up, it will be very swingy because it's a card that you can only use in the early game. Like, if you have this on turn 1, it's great. You play the library, you tap it, you draw a card. Great. What happens now? You have 8 cards in your hand. Well, good. You can discard one to hand sides, go ahead. Now, is that bad? Definitely not. You can fill your graveyard. My decks use the graveyard. Just pulling draws is good. So the card will be good. It will be powerful. But again, it taps only for colorless mana, only for 1 colorless mana. I don't think it will be broken. While it being very powerful, if you draw it anywhere else over the early game, remember, it only can be activated if you have 7 cards. Not more than 7, not less than 7. So its power comes from the fact that it's very difficult to interact with, and in 1v1 formats, drawing a card on a land is extremely powerful, even if you need to hold to send back a decent chunk of them. In Commander, for 1 mana drawing a card is not that good, actually. Is it good? Yes, it is. If you could consistently do it, it would be. But since you can use it only at exactly 7, I don't think it will break the game at all. Again, if you play this on like turn 3 or 4, you're not gonna have 7 cards in hand, probably ever for the rest of the game. Because again, 7, exactly 7. How many times you look at your hand and you, oh yeah, I have 6 cards, I have 4 cards, I have 5 cards, I have 8 cards, I have a gajillion cards if I drew many cards and have an unlimited hand size like a Reliquary Tower, and you wouldn't be able to activate the Library of Alexandria in those cases. I mean, this is one of the cards that's put on the ban list because it's powerful and it costs a lot of money. Way back then, there were cards banned because of their cost, not their power level. And Library of Alexandria was one of those. I believe it should be unbanned. I don't personally own a copy of Library of Alexandria, but I think it will be very fun to put into play. The art looks amazing, and almost no one plays Vintage, so it will have a home. I think it will be played in some decks for sure, especially decks that can easily manipulate their hand size. Probably with commanders that can consistently draw cards that can refill very easily, this could be good. But again, if you can refill your hand very easily, you don't really need a land that taps for drawing. So I think Library of Alexandria should be unbanned. It will be a fun card to play with. I don't think it will be broken, and that's it for it. Let me know in the comments if you're a Vintage player, if you would think that the Library of Alexandria would be a problematic card for the format, because I never played with the card. This is just theory. I don't think it will be broken, but I've never played with it. I may be wrong, so please let me know down in the comments if I'm extremely wrong with this evaluation. Coming up next, Gifts Ungiven. For 3 and a blue, it's an instant. You can search your library for 4 cards with different names and reveal them. Target opponent chooses 2 of those. You put the chosen cards in your graveyard and the rest in your hand. Afterward, you shuffle your library. Is this card extremely good? Yes, it is. For my instant speed, you can fetch 4 cards. You draw 2. Puts 2 in your graveyard. So it is very powerful. And in Commander, it can be very well used with Poddeck, because you can fetch up a strong removal spell for a problematic card. You can ask one of your opponents to give you a card you really need, and the removal spell with the promise to get rid of the permanent that's troubling. so you can deal with a permanent and get a good card out of it for 4 mana and fill your graveyard with possibly 2 good reanimation targets. Is Gibson Given broken is the question. I believe, while being extremely strong and it would 100% see play if it wasn't banned, it's not more powerful than cards we already have in the format. I think Vampiric Tutor is extremely more powerful than Gibson Given. You get 100% the card on top of your deck for just 1 mana. It can be any card, no one can say anything about it. You have Entomb. If you want to reanimate a powerful card, it's 1 mana instead of 4. You can put only 1 card instead of 2 into your grave, but being 1/4 of the cost, I would say it's very much worth it. So it's probably the most powerful blue tutor if that was your concern. Yeah, if you're restricted to blue, it's probably better than Mystical Tutor and Fabricate if you want to fetch up anything, because Mystical Tutor only fetches up instant sorceries. So if you needed exactly an instant sorcery, I would say it's better. Otherwise, Gibson Given is better. So if your concern is blue having access to very powerful tutors for anything, then I can understand why you don't want Gibson Given in the game, but I think it would be very fun to play with, not problematic to play against, and not too strong either. So I believe it should be unbanned, even though it may be controversial because of its power. And because it's a tutor, and most people don't really like playing with tutors. Some do. I know many people that just jam like 5-6 tutor cards in their deck, and they can do it, even without Gibson Given. Gibson Given is not there to say we don't like tutors. It's not in the Banlist because the rules committee thinks tutors are bad for the format. I think it's there because of its power level. I don't think it's justified. Again, Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Mystical Tutor, Enlightened Tutor, Worldly Tutor, Entomb. These cards are at least as good as in Gibson Given. At the very least, there is no way Gibson Given is strictly better than Demonic Tutor or Vampiric Tutor. I refuse to believe it. So Gibson Given, to me, should be unbanned. Right now, would be extremely powerful, would be very much played, but we wouldn't break the format in any shape or form. Next one is everyone's favorite Breacher, the whole one. Fortuna Black. It's a creature, it's a Merfolk pirate, it has flash. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead you create a treasure token. If somehow you don't know, it's an artifact with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. He doesn't need a map to find reaches, he really doesn't. So, this Merfolk is bullshit. I'm sorry for the word. This card shouldn't exist. It was a mistake. Unfortunately, it was printed very briefly playable in casual play. It's banned. I'm very happy it is because this is a stronger Leovold. Everything I said for Leovold is true for the Breacher times 2. It cannot be played in command zone, which is the only upside, but this guy has flash, so it can be played in response to any opponent drawing, and I would argue that even if there are similar cards to this, the one that comes closest to this is Notion Thief. For those who don't know, Notion Thief, it's for 2, a blue and a black, it's a human rogue, it has flash as well, and if an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead the player skips that draw and you draw a card. It's a 3-1. So why is Notion Thief unbanned and is Merfolk Hull Breacher banned? Many good reasons. So first up, Notion Thief costs 4, not 3. Second up, Notion Thief is in 2 colors instead of 1, so it can't be included in as many decks. Third one, regardless of how many cards gets drawn with Notion Thief, you draw a card. You don't make a treasure token for each card drawn. So if your opponent draws 15 cards and you Notion Thief, you draw a card. If your opponent draws 15 cards and you Hull Breacher, you make 15 treasures. And that's stupid. I don't think drawing cards is that powerful that it's okay to hate on it this much. I don't think it's justified. I think Notion Thief is good at stopping your opponents that want to draw many cards without making you win the game instantly. The problem with the Hull Breacher is that not only you would stop them from drawing, but you will also win the game as you do it. And again, cost less, easier to include, and this is not to talk about the fact that you can force your opponent to draw the cards, not going over that again, same as Leovold, except you will also win the game thanks to the treasures much faster. So, Hull Breacher, mistake card. People were scared of Opposition Agent, but of the two, Hull Breacher is easily the one that takes the cake for the most powerful, most annoying, and especially the one that hates on the wrong thing. Drawing multiple cards shouldn't be hated on like this. It's a fun part of Commander. You should hate on something like tutors. That's why I like the Opposition Agent much better. Because if you're playing powerful cards like Vampire Tutor, you should be hated on, and not when you're playing cards like Harmonize. Now, of course, Opposition Agent has its own cases where it's busted, for example, against simple rampant growth effects or fetch lands. You don't really want to stop a guy that's trying to play Evolving Wilds from finding a basic land, but it's from Commander Legends. That set is extremely busted, and Hull Breacher was the most powerful card out of the set. And it was banned because it was powerful, but also because it was extremely unfun. I've talked about Hull Breacher for a lifetime. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And again, if you have strong feelings about some of the cards that I think should be unbanned, please leave them in the comments down below. Otherwise, I'll see you in part 4 on the deep dive in the Commander Banlist. This was Eve, thanks for watching.